Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Boston Tea Party Podcast, the place where we talk all things Patriots, part of the all-day football show. I'm your host, Jackson Kellogg, and we're going to get right into the first ever episode of the Boston Tea Party Podcast. And today, we will be talking about all the player opt-outs that have been happening on the Patriots, the quarterback competition going on to camp. There are 5 player acquisitions during the week, part of free agent signings, and a trade, and any other topics that may come up while trying to bring you the Patriots news. So first, we'll go over the player opt-outs. 8 total players opted out for COVID reasons: Dante Hightower, Patrick Chung, Marcus Cannon, Matt Lacoste, Danny Vitale, Marquise Lee, Brendan Bolden, and Najee Turan. So that included 1 offensive starter, with Marcus Cannon being the starting right tackle, and 2 defensive starters, with starting middle linebacker Dante Hightower and starting strong safety Patrick Chung, and then 1 special team starter and kick returner and running back Brendan Bolden. So with all of these opt-outs that left so many barren positions for the Patriots, they lost depth in multiple spots. Like Danny Vitale was competing with Jakob Johnson for the fullback spot. Marquise Lee, who we signed in the offseason from Jacksonville, was going to be competing for a spot on the roster with the receivers. Najee Turan competing for an offensive line backup spot. So many different battles that some of these players were fighting in, and they just decided to opt out. So many of you might be thinking, why so many Patriots opt-outs? So I think part of the reason is, if you look at it, there are 3 starters there, and even Brendan Bolden as a special team starter, his job was in jeopardy with so many young players being brought on to the Patriots. They were going to be competing for that spot. So I think what happened was a lot of these players, not the starters per se, but more the backups, saw that with Belichick, you could be a veteran and still get cut. So a lot of these players were cut candidates, and they saw that, well, I might not make the roster, and if I don't, I might not get picked up afterward even. So they wanted to guarantee money. So with player opt-outs, if you opted out for a medical reason, like Marcus Cannon, who opted out because he had non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Sorry if I botched that pronunciation. So when you opt out for a medical reason of yourself, you get $350,000 salary, and your contract just pushes the year. So I think Dante Hightower was going to be a free agent after this year. So when he opted out, his contract pushes, so he'll be a free agent at the end of next year. So where, again, in Dante Hightower's case, he didn't opt out for a medical reason for him. He had a child, so he didn't want to risk the child getting sick. So he opted out for a non-medical reason of his own, so he gets $150,000 in salary. So if you look at it for these backups, they took it as, I can put a bet on maybe making somewhere between $600K to $1 million, which is most of their contracts were, and have the chance to get cut and not make anything, or I can guarantee at least a little bit of money, because if you're a free agent, you don't get money at all. I don't believe you get to collect unemployment even, so they wanted to guarantee money, possibly, so they took it as, it's low risk because you don't have to worry about getting sick from playing football, and you can get money just from probably sitting on your couch, working out to keep in shape, and watching the games on your television. So, but this is a good situation for the Patriots in the sense that even though they opted out, a lot of these opt-outs were more veteran-type players, so it gives the chance for young players to try and prove themselves and get starting positions and learn how to run the system. So I guess that kind of puts it into perspective of why these players all opted out. I mean, it was more than any other team, I think, by 6. I think the next closest was 2, maybe 3. But so many Patriots player opt-outs. But I don't think it'll matter too much in some of these retrospects. It'll be hard to replace Dante Hightower, which I'll get into in a sec. But I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how these young players come in. And the biggest thing is how they're going to substitute this time and snaps in. So Normally the Patriots go with like a 3-4 set where they'll have one of the D tackles in the center, so most likely Adam Butler. You get Lawrence Guy on one end, John Simon on the other. There's your three. And then you get your forward linebackers, where normally it's Dante Hightower, and it probably would have been Jawan Bentley as the two inside linebackers. Winovich on one end, and then Uche and Jennings rotating on the other end, depending on what type of down it is. Uche on a passing down, Jennings on a running down. But I think what they'll go with is more, they could either rotate Dante Hightower out and put Brendan Copeland in that spot, because Copeland's played inside linebacker before. So they could go with that, or they could switch to a 4-3, which would give them Adam Butler and Lawrence Guy on the inside, John Simon on one end, and Chase Winovich on the other. And then you could throw Bentley in the center, Copeland on one end, which is where he's more comfortable with, which is outside linebacker, and then again put Uche and Jennings on the other side. So I'm thinking a 4-3 would be a better look, considering how the Patriots have depth right now. They have more depth at the defensive line than they do linebackers. So in my opinion, generally you want to go with the formation that, one, fits your scheme, but two, where you have depth so you can rotate. So, but to be honest, I don't think they'll go with either. I think a lot of their snaps are going to come out of 5 defensive backs, whether it's 3 corners, 2 safeties, or 2 corners, 3 safeties. I think we're going to see a lot of 5 defensive back formations for the Patriots this season. The right tackle battle for Marcus Cannon opting out will be between Yadni Kajus, Corey Cunningham, and Justin Herron. I think Yadni Kajus has the best chance of getting it, former third-round pick from 2019 out of West Virginia. He missed all of last season, though, with a quad injury. So it'll be interesting to see if he can bounce back from that. Corey Cunningham we traded for last season with Arizona after we had so many injuries at the offensive line between Isaiah Wynn, David Andrews being out for the year, and Marcus Cannon, I think, missed a little bit of time even too. And then the third person, Justin Herron, we drafted this year in the 6th round as a rookie out of Wake Forest. He played decent at Wake Forest. He did have a knee injury in 2018, so he is a little bit injury prone, but these 3 guys will be battling for the chance at starting at that right tackle spot, and expect even if one of them doesn't get it, they might still stay on to be swing tackle, because that was probably going to be Yadni Kajus' job, but Marcus Cannon opted out. And then with Patrick Chung as the third starter that opted out, that'll be a battle between Adrian Phillips and Kyle Duggar to take that spot. Adrian Phillips went undrafted in 2014, spent his whole career with the Chargers up until now, signed this offseason on a 2-year deal. Hasn't done a ton in his career. He's played well, racked up 250 tackles, 5 interceptions as a player, but he never started more than 8 games in a season, so it'll be interesting to see if he can go into a full-time role with playing double the amount of games as a starter. Or you could go with Kyle Duggar, who drafted in this year out of Lenore Rye. From the film that I did watch on Kyle Duggar, he looks great. I think Adrian Phillips will get the nod for it just because he's more of a veteran, and they'll throw Kyle Duggar in if they go the 3 defensive backs to cover like a tight end or a running back. But so if you look at it, the secondary is going to look a little different than last year. The linebacking core is going to be completely revamped, and the defensive line will look fairly similar. So it'll be a very uplifting spirit of mine if the defense is still just as good as it was last year, because I loved seeing that amazing defensive play last year, aside late in the season when they couldn't stop the run for some reason, but hopefully that changes. So we'll see how that goes into next season. This season on Foxborough, the greatest of all time, gone. Who will replace the All-Star? Will it be the former MVP who's been injury prone the last couple seasons? Will it be the youngster who was drafted in the 4th round but threw a pick 6 to Jamal Adams on only his 3rd career throw? Or will it be the seasoned veteran who can't stick to a roster other than the Patriots? Let's find out on Foxborough. Why, thank you there. So, the quarterback competition is going to be a 3-way battle after Brady has left. It'll be between Cam Newton, Jarrett Stidham, and I guess technically Brian Hoyer. They're giving him a chance, but it's really between the two you can see on your screen right now. Cam Newton is the favorite after signing a 1-year, technically $7.5 million deal, except 90% of it is incentives. So we got him for nothing. A former MVP for nothing. Okay then, the league is a little bit not too smart, but we'll keep going. So Cam Newton, 124 starts in his 9-year career. He does only have a 59.6% completion percentage, his highest in one season being 67.9 in 2018. He was having a good year that year. I forget his name, but they brought in a new offensive coordinator. I think it was North Turner. They brought in new offensive coordinator, and he made Cam Newton throw shorter passes instead of chucking the ball deep, and he was doing really well with it, and then he got popped in the shoulder. So that happened. And then in 2019, when he tried to bounce back from it, he hurt his foot in the preseason against no one other than the Patriots. What do you know? So he hasn't been around much the last 2 years, but he's done well in the time that he has been around. His yards have dropped consistently each year, though, since 2015. So hopefully that doesn't continue. His career touchdown interception ratio being 182 touchdowns to 108 interceptions, which is good for about a 1.69 touchdown to interception ratio. So to compare that, I like using Derek Carr as a comparison for stats because he's always such an underappreciated quarterback because of how the Raiders have played in the last few seasons since he's been there. But Derek Carr has had tremendous stats while he's been there. So just to compare, Derek Carr in same amount of career, or for 3 seasons less, has thrown for 143 touchdowns to 62 interceptions. But they've played similar amount of time if you take into account Cam Newton's injuries. Cam Newton played about 2 more seasons because I don't think Derek Carr played much in his first season. But even then, his ratio is still just eyeballing it like a 2.5. So still significantly better than Cam Newton. Cam Newton with his 68 wins, 55 losses, and 1 tie in his career record. So you look at it and you go, why is Cam Newton such a highly praised quarterback? The stats don't jump off the board. But you have to look at it as his stats don't show how he plays. If you watch film on Cam Newton, if you watch how he plays, he's such a wild card when it comes to between throwing, running. I don't know how much running he'll be throwing now after he hurt his foot. I'm sure it'll be more than Tom Brady did. So I'm kind of looking forward to, if he is the starter, the more mobility that the Patriots offense might have. Hopefully they have a little bit more use of throwing the deep pass. I don't want them to do it often, but definitely more than Brady did, because Brady's week-old 42-year-old arm was only able to throw the ball deep twice every other week. So that kind of took out a lot from the Patriots playbook. So is the ability of not being able to run from Brady. So just bringing in Cam Newton gives you so much more to work with, even if he isn't 100% himself. So I'm looking forward to see if Cam Newton can win the starting battle. One stat I did see that was really neat. So every other season so his records by season go back and forth. So when this started happening, 2013 he went 12-4, but then in 2014 he went 5-8-1, and then the following season, 2015, was the 15-1 year. Then the next year goes 6-8. But the following year, 17, goes 11-5, 2018, 6-8. So he missed most of 2019, so I wouldn't count that as a season. So if he starts this year, if we're using no logic, no statistics, or anything, you can predict that the Patriots might have a winning record this year. But who knows? That's just, I don't know. It's doubtful, just to base off of that. But I'll be hopeful. Now, the second quarterback in this competition, Jarrett Stidham, rookie last year, drafted in the 4th round out of Auburn. He came in for 3 games over the year, only throwing in one of them, though, and that included 2 completions on 4 attempts, with a pick 6 thrown right to Jamal Adams against the Jets. Thank God that was like a blowout, so it didn't even matter. Some college stats for him: he had, in 3 seasons in college, 64.3% completion percentage with a 48 touchdowns and 13 interceptions ratio. That's good for almost 4 touchdowns to 1 interception. He played 3 seasons, one year for Baylor in 2015 where they went 10-3. Then he transferred, he didn't transfer, he left the program, didn't play in 2016, joined Auburn to play for them in 2017 and 2018, going 10-4 and then 8-5 to total 18-9 record with Auburn. So in total, that gives you a 28-12 record in 3 years of college. That's not overly good, but it's fairly decent considering, Jarrett Stidham was out of Baylor, was going to be projected to be like a 1st rounder, all that, but then just stuff didn't go well for him. He had absolutely no receivers at Auburn. His top receiver was Darius Slayton, who was either a late round pick or undrafted for the Giants. That was his best receiver while he was there. So the fact that he did get those stats while dealing with that, good for him. The coaches have praised Jarrett Stidham highly over the last season. There's been a lot of talk where the fans want Cam Newton, but the coaches want Jarrett Stidham. So I think it'll be an internal battle to watch as, does Bill Belichick have more faith in the player who's been there for a year or the player who's more talented and more gifted? So between those two, the battle is going to come down to between those two, even though Brian Hoyer is there. So just some quick stats on him. It's his 3rd stint with the Patriots after they drafted him. I believe that was back in 2009. He has a 16-22 record in the NFL, and surprisingly, even though this is his 3rd stint with the Patriots, he's never started a game for them. Never. His best season was with Houston, I believe it. No, I'm sorry, Cleveland. He had a good season with Cleveland, and then nothing even worth it after that. Career yards at 10,274, 52 touchdowns, 34 interceptions. So it's pretty easy to see why he wasn't kept around. He didn't win, couldn't throw the ball well. So that's why Brian Hoyer's been a career backup. But back when Brian Hoyer was signed earlier in the offseason, it was talk that he took less money to play for the Patriots than for someone else because the Patriots said you'd be competing for the starter spot. I don't know how true that was because Stidham beat him for the backup job last year. So it was Brady, Stidham, Hoyer, and Hoyer and Stidham were battling for the backup, and Stidham won because they cut Hoyer, and he went to go play for the Colts. So I don't think that would change in a year. So I would put Stidham over Hoyer anyway. But then you throw Cam Newton into the mix, and you're just in for a lot of trouble there. He should have gone and signed with whoever gave him more money because that wasn't very smart. So now he's going to be he's probably not going to get cut, but he definitely is not battling for the starting job because Cam Newton and Jarrett Stidham are the two battling for that. Early pick right now, I think it's going to go to Cam Newton. just by the way he's been working out. If he stays healthy, I think the Patriots offense is going to look very good this year. So we'll see how that goes. If it does go to Stidham, I think Cam Newton will be humble about it. It'll suck for him long term, though, because if he plays well for the Patriots, that means he's going to get a big fat contract at the end of this year, whether it's from the Patriots or someone else. Whereas if he doesn't start, you'll look to see a decline in his career, because it's a lot of times if a Patriots player if Belichick lets a player leave, and because they didn't play well in New England, they're most likely not going to play well somewhere else. Which, look for the last player who sucked in New England and played good somewhere else. So that's my take on that. I think it'll go to Cam Newton, but Stidham still has a chance. Lastly, we're going to look at 5 different transactions that happened this week, with the most recent one happening yesterday, where the Patriots signed running back Lamar Miller. That was due to Sony Michel is still on the physically able to perform list after getting surgery on his foot during the offseason. So he is not in practice right now, and that means that the Patriots have Brandon Bolden on opt-out list, Michel on PUP list, Rex Burkhead's injury prone, so that leaves James White, Damian Harris, and J.J. Taylor as never gotten or injured or on the roster. So that leaves you with a receiving back, a former third-round pick from last year who hasn't really gotten playing time, and an undrafted free agent. So if you look at it there, that's why they signed him. Lamar Miller, 5,864 yards in his career, and throwing another 1,565 yards, 8 touchdowns receiving-wise, 32 touchdowns running. But he missed all of 2019 with a tore ACL after playing for Houston. Got that injury during the preseason last year. Was gone after that. So he proved himself as a good back when he played for the Dolphins, which is why he got the 4-year contract with Houston. But he never really lived up to that contract, making 1 Pro Bowl back in 2018. But that kind of odded me out, because that was the season he had 2 seasons with better stats and didn't make the Pro Bowl in either of those years. But that's partially because the Pro Bowl is a joke. The Pro Bowl is just a popularity contest. So other transactions this week, they signed Tyler Gauthier, I don't know how to pronounce that, at offensive tackle to help compete for that open spot, but I doubt he's going to last very long. Tight end Jordan Leggett, probably more to just help push the rookies that are on that team, because there are 4 rookies and a second-year veteran. So though Jordan Leggett hasn't been in the league for very long, at least it's been longer than any other players who are there. So, I mean, no seasons combined from 4 players plus 1 from the other. Jordan Leggett has more seasons in the NFL than the rest of the tight ends on the roster combined. So technically he's a veteran in that room, but he's played for the Buccaneers and the Jets already, so I don't think that's going to amount to very much. They signed defensive tackle Darius Kilgo, who I'd never heard of, but when I looked him up, apparently he had a stint with the Patriots, also played for the Broncos. He got practice squatted by the Patriots, but then was picked up, played for the Broncos, but he was on the Broncos roster, but didn't get a ton of playing time. So it'll be curious to see if he can get a chance at cracking the roster, and if he does, a chance at the rotation with Adam Butler, Bo Allen, Byron Cowart, and him as well. So he'll be probably battling with some of those undrafted free agents for a spot on the roster. And lastly, the Patriots traded for cornerback Michael Jackson from the Detroit Lions for a conditional 2022 pick. Supposedly the Lions were putting him on waivers, but the Patriots submitted the trade beforehand. I don't think it was really worth it. Might just be depth, because they do only have 6 corners on the roster if you count Justin Bethel, who's a special teamer, but 6 corners on the roster. Probably did it just for depth during training camp to fill out the 80-man roster that you get during the training camps. So those were the 5 transactions that happened during the week, and this has been the Boston Tea Party Podcast. Thank you for watching. Hope you subscribe, like the video, and come back for more sometime. Thank you so much for watching. Have a good rest of your day.